now that we're transitioning into the 2024 election, let me ask you real quick, and then I've got a big question about media standards in general. I'm dying for you to weigh in on. But you had an interview on, excuse me, Sirius XM with Dan Abrams of Mediaite, in which you weighed in, you opined, and I love to hear it about your preference for President Biden over Donald Trump in this election cycle.
Yeah.
You also said that that's not something you would have or could have said on CNN. So again, my question is, how does it feel? Does it feel liberating or strange? Don Lemon is weighing in on a presidential election. Is it both? Is it weird and liberating?
It is liberating and it is weird. I don't think it's actually that weird. I think it's good. Transparency is good. Listen, I represented a company and a brand before that I could not do that. But I think it was very clear how I felt about President Trump. I just could not say so much how I felt about and about the MAGA movement because I think it's dangerous. So I'm not endorsing anyone. But when asked, what do you think about the current situation, I expressed my point of view about it. And, it was a whole idea about, is Joe Biden, mentally capable, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are, pretty close to the same age. And I think, Joe Biden, he has issues. Everyone has issues. No one is a perfect person, nor will they be a perfect leader or a perfect president. He has a stutter. He has to deal with that. He's getting up there. Okay, fine. He even talks about that. But I think he surrounds himself with good people. And I think he surrounds himself with people who are at least trying to do the right thing for the country. He believes in democracy, and so do the people around him. And that is the most important thing at this point. So whoever becomes president after the 2024 election, in 2028 and beyond, if Joe Biden is elected to become president again, or reelected, I should say, at least the next person will have a full, intact democracy to work with. On the other hand, if Donald Trump is elected president, I'm not so sure that would happen because he has said as much that he wants. He has dictatorial traits and leanings, and he says he's going to, give him hell. He's attacked institutions. He's been doing it for, when he was president and before. And so I think that I believe in democracy. I don't believe in political parties. And there's one political party right now and one administration that believes in democracy, and that is the Democratic Party, and that is the Biden administration. And so I would place my bets on them, with keeping our country in order and keeping our democracy and our republic intact.
Listen, I think that's a perfectly fair and substantive answer. It's one that I clearly echo too. And for what it's worth, I love the fact that you felt liberated to articulate. It's one of the things, again, to reference one of your peers, Mehdi Hassan, which I like, which is that he's not going to pretend that these two sides are equal. He can't do it. He would actually consider it a dereliction of journalistic credibility to do so. It seems like you were leaning in that direction as well, which gets me to the broader question. You mentioned, perceptions about President Biden's age. The thing that frustrates me, because that is something we hear about quite a bit, those same polls, and I know you know this, also say a majority of Americans also think that Donald Trump is not mentally competent to be president. Now, there's a disparity in the perception, but it's always framed by mainstream media and certainly right-wing media that basically Donald Trump is a criminal and Joe Biden is senile. When in fact, if you look at the polling, it's actually people think Donald Trump is a senile criminal. And so in my perception, I'm saying that's the perception, Don, just saying. In the media, it seems to be an asymmetry. It seems like they bend over backwards to make a false equivalence in order to avoid the perception of liberal bias, which, by the way, they get tarred and feather with anyway. So you are in a unique position, given your tenure and experience with legacy media. Now you're transitioning into alternate media. You are unshackled, unburdened. Am I crazy? Am I making this up? Or is there an asymmetry in even mainstream media that seems to grade Republicans and Trump on a curve?
You've been listening to my phone calls. You must have a bug in my apartment or whatever, because I say that all the time. I say that, people in the media are so afraid of being called liberal or what have you, that they let their opponents and their competition define them. And you shouldn't do that. Democrats do the same thing. They're afraid of being called a name, or people, perceiving them a certain way. Yes, and it's a false equivalence. I don't believe in false equivalence. And I do believe that people in media, especially now, the rules are different and what's at stake is very important. And I think you should be a bit more transparent about it. It's okay. It's okay to say we don't believe in fostering lies. We don't believe in putting people on who lie and giving them an equal platform as people who are telling the truth. That's not liberal. Now, conservatives or people, MAGA folks will say that, but just because they say it or they criticize you for it does not make it true. And so, and I think, listen, Rachel Maddow said as much when she talked about the Ronna Mc. And so we're at a very critical point right now where it is important for the media to understand where they are and the media to understand that there is a fight for democracy and for the media to understand their role in, I hate this word platforming, but I think amplifying the voices of people who are trying to ruin that democracy and amplifying the voice of people who are election deniers and amplifying the voice of people who are insurrectionist supporters. I think there is a danger in that. And unless the media grows some cojones and are able to stand up to the people who criticize them for it or for the extreme right wing of the Republican Party, meaning the MAGA folks, then we're all in trouble. And it would be a dereliction, and it most likely will if they don't get their acts together or they don't realize that what is at stake by the time election time comes. But, election day comes. I think a lot of people, do realize that this is not like I'm generalizing here a bit, but I do think that there are a lot of people who in media who do realize that. I just want people who are, overly concerned with people thinking that they're in the middle. What is the middle? Who knows what the middle is? Who are not biased. Okay, what does that mean? Because everyone has a particular lens through which they view life and the world, and our experiences are different. I'm a gay Black man. I would assume that you're a heterosexual white man. Okay, fine. We're all Americans, but that doesn't mean that we have the same lens about life. It doesn't mean that we have the same experience. We walk different paths in America. We're part of the same country, but our paths are different. So I think that people should not be so concerned about, oh my gosh, you're biased, you're whatever. Okay, just tell the truth. That's the important part. It's not about being like in the middle of this screen or whatever. It's like, just tell the truth and stop trying to pretend that you want to give equal footing to one side who is upholding democracy and another side who is in the process of trying to tear it down or allowing a group of people or a man or a political movement to tear it down.
Listen, yeah, okay, number one, I do have a bug in your apartment. You have a great singing voice, I might add, number one. But number two, I mean, I completely agree. This is this to me. So I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm a commentator. And I also want to see if you consider yourself different now, journalist versus commentator. I'm not on the ground reporting. I'm analyzing, I'm providing my opinion through a prism of political analysis and ideology. I make no bones about it. But to me, there's a danger of creating this false equivalence, grading disparate sides on a scale, because to your point about being called a liberal, they're going to call you a liberal anyway, Don. Like, there's nothing you can do. That you could give this most softball interview to Donald Trump on Monday if he ever shows up on the Don Lemon Show, which, by the way, I'd love. You should try to make that happen, Don. I would love that. And then on Tuesday, if you happen to just acknowledge, I don't know, that maybe he shouldn't have classified documents or national defense information as a former president, give it back. If you say one bad thing about him, you're part of the liberal media again. Like, there's no satisfying those bad faith critics. So to me, I agree.
That happened with the Elon Musk interview. Again, I did not find any question that I asked difficult or targeted to any political leaning. It was just very simple questions about him and stuff that he said, and that's it. And so people are like, oh my gosh, you're a liberal lefty, you're doing the same thing you're doing on CNN, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, to me, it's shocking. But also, even he said, you're doing the same thing that you're doing on CNN. Well, isn't that why you wanted me to be on your platform, is because of my work on CNN? There's a former cable news host on his platform who's doing the same thing that he did on Fox News, and he has no problem with that.
That's very suspicious how that's the case. And it's
Yeah.
it's that meme where it's like, I'm doing, if that's true, I'm doing the thing that you said you hired me for. And it's like, not like that. Not like, don't do it like that,
Yeah.
Don.
Don't do it
Not,
like that. Yeah.